Welcome back to the KO Game Room, humanoids, and for tonight's review I've got another classic arcade game, and that is Berserk, ported to the Vectrex arcade system. Now the Vectrex is pretty much vintage at this point, along with the Atari 2600 and other consoles of the era, but while I get bored before too long with the Atari, the Vectrex fascinates me to no end. It has a much better controller and it was very innovative for its time, and obviously the built-in vector graphics monitor. I initially played Berserk on the Atari 2600, and I immediately fell in love with it. Working your way through the mazes and blasting enemies in a classic arcade format had me going for hours. Easily one of my favorites for the system. But it wouldn't be until years later that I finally got my hands on a Vectrex and began exploring its excellent, but sadly limited library of games. Of course, already being a fan of Berserk, I was thrilled to find out that there existed a version of the game on the Vectrex. When compared to its arcade and Atari counterparts, the version of Berserk on the Vectrex actually is lacking in gameplay variety, only having one playable game mode. The version of Berserk that came out on the Atari 2600 sports 12 different playable game modes, ranging from easy to near impossible difficulties, and they are accessed by hitting the game mode switch. The Vectrex has no such option. Here all you'll find is a power knob and a reset button. In any version of Berserk, the general gameplay remains the same. You take control of the humanoid, who must work his way through the maze, destroying as many robots as possible in the process. As you progress, the robots you'll encounter periodically become more threatening. They begin to move around more, fire in multiple round bursts, they have faster traveling shots, and even take more damage to kill, but they are still dumb as dirt. These guys almost help you as much as they try to hurt you, walking into walls or sometimes even shooting each other in the back. If the player takes too long in clearing out or exiting the room, the almighty Evil Otto appears to chase you out. This guy means business. Despite that lifeless smile, if you're caught by Otto, he'll trample you to death without so much as a blink. He seems like a laughable video game boss by today's standards, but Evil Otto has a very real association with the actual death of two gamers playing in the arcade in the early 1980s. According to several sources on the internet, both players were doing extremely well, breaking records and landing top 10 scores in their respective times, and both of them died suddenly of a heart attack just seconds after the game was over. Obviously, a fictional video game character couldn't be capable of any such thing, but as a result of these tragedies, Evil Otto is often regarded as one of gaming's most evil villains, right up there with the opposing paddle in Pong. While I do recommend this game on the Vectrex, I'd have to say that the versions of the game that I've played on the Atari and in the arcade are much better. On the Atari, there are multiple game modes to choose from, and I just think that the Atari handles the game a little bit better. The humanoid in any version of the game isn't exactly a sprinter, but he seems especially slow on the Vectrex. Now I would like to mention that the controller on the Vectrex is far better than the clumsy one-button joystick that the Atari had, but even better is the Sega Genesis gamepad. You can say goodbye to that obnoxious stiff joystick and plug one of these babies into your Atari. BERZERK on the Vectrex is becoming more and more difficult to find, just like any other gamer accessory for the console, but it's still worth it to pick it up if you're a fan of the game. The version for the Atari 2600 is abundant and affordable. I've come across them at just about every single game store, and I've seen it multiple times at garage sales and flea markets. BERZERK is a timeless classic that deserves to be enjoyed by gamers of every generation, and is no doubt a staple in any Vectrex collection. With that, I'd like to thank you all for tuning into another episode of the KO Game Room, and I'll see you all next time.